Good morning, everyone. Here I am, Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch of Lincoln-Goldfinch Law, live with you guys as per the usual on Tuesdays on our English show, although we're a little bit earlier than usual, and you might notice my background's different. I'm traveling again. I'm in gorgeous Saltillo, Mexico, and I'm touring. I just got here yesterday. I'm doing a bunch of tours, and we'll be sharing a lot of things on the social media. It's a really gorgeous state and city, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm traveling with the Hispanic Contractors Association, and today is the International Day of the Child, and this association is gifting 50 brand new bicycles to kids in need later this afternoon, so I get to be there and watch all these kids get their new bicycles. So I'm happy to be here in Coahuila celebrating the friendship between the two cities. And one thing I've learned on this trip that I didn't know is that Saltillo and the city of Austin consider themselves sister cities, which is pretty cool. They have for a long time, for decades now. And so there's a long history of friendship and, business relationships between two of the both cities. And they're not that far apart. It takes really only 6 or 7 hours driving from Austin to Saltillo, and it's a relatively safe drive. So anyway, learning all sorts of new things. I'm in this gorgeous hotel. It's very old. All the furniture is very old and just historic. The city is 450 years old. They have, I think, the oldest vineyards in the Americas. So just really fascinating stuff. Travel is just great, isn't it? One of the reasons I love immigration. But anyway, I'm happy to be here with you today. I'm going to start with the news of the week, which, is not a great list of items. There's one good news item. I'll throw that there in the middle. But it's been another rough week for immigrants. So the first item I'll touch on is the U.S. citizen kids who have been deported. There's been a lot of chatter about this in the media. The stories are there was a mother who was deported without her nursing infant. There was a mother who was deported with her 2-year-old child who was a U.S. citizen, but the father is here in the United States and he did not want the child to go with the mother. And then there was another really heartbreaking story about a mom who was deported with her 4-year-old U.S. citizen child who is currently battling stage 4 cancer. I mean, really shocking stuff. And Tom Homan, who is just, I don't know if there's any love in that man's tiny little cold heart, but he did a press conference yesterday and he said, well, these people shouldn't have had kids. They shouldn't have had kids and made that decision and put themselves at risk. The counter argument to that, of course, is that people deserve due process. And, I've been talking about due process a lot lately, and I get some pushback, like, what even is due process? And I saw a really, I think, useful meme that said due process, only criminals don't deserve due process, right, is what people say. And then the argument to that is due process is what you use to determine if someone is a criminal. Otherwise, you're just kidnapping people you don't like. So I thought that was a great way to explain what due process is. And in the context of these deportations with these U.S. citizen children, what should have occurred is there should have been enough time. Each of these women, these mothers, were detained at routine ICE check-ins, right? So they were cooperating, they were complying, they went to their appointment. And if they were really set for deportation, I mean, sometimes people get deported, but historically, for people who are cooperative and showing up to their appointments, what happens is they get something called a bag and baggage letter, where they get a letter that says, you need to depart the United States on X date in 4 months and show up with all of your things. And that gives this person enough time to close out their lease and transfer the kids' schools and decide what they're going to do with the children and handle the cancer treatments for the 4-year-old. This is just basic human decency, is allowing someone the opportunity, if they truly are going to be deported, to wrap up their affairs. And the way that these things are being handled are just incredibly heartless, and they are resulting in the separation of families. This is family separation 2.0. And Homan would argue we're keeping the families together. We're deporting the children with the parents. No, these are families that are getting separated by these actions, and they don't have a chance to say goodbye. They don't have a chance to, like the father of that 2-year-old child, he didn't have a chance to go into family court and say, hey, judge, my wife is being deported and, I'd like to have some sort of custody arrangement. His baby's just gone. So the key is that all this needs to slow down and give people a chance for due process, meaning a right to go before a judge and plead their case. And that is precisely what the Trump administration doesn't want to provide immigrants. They would like, if they had their druthers, which they kind of are having their druthers right now, they would like to just kidnap people on the street and whisk them away and not have to answer to anybody about any of their actions whatsoever. Just gone. And that's what they're doing, and that's what's happening with these CCOT cases and these people being sent to El Salvador and these Venezuelans, and these parents are getting deported. They're just whisking people away without giving people the opportunity. And we talked about last week, Trump tweeted, he said, we just don't have the capacity to give court hearings to all of these people. Well, that's not true. The Department of Homeland Security has $100 billion annual budget. Did you know that their budget is bigger than all of the other law enforcement agencies combined? They have an immense budget. And meanwhile, while Trump is saying this on the one hand, they're slashing immigration judges. They're firing immigration judges left and right, which are precisely, of course, the people who move these cases along. So it's not true. And it's horrific. And I hope that we start to see some judicial intervention in the cases of these deported kids. So my setup is a little weird, so you see me looking around. Please forgive me. But I see all of you here joining. Thank you with me. So let's talk about the next piece of immigration news. This is about the immigration judge in Milwaukee, Judge Duggan, who was arrested. So she is a county judge in Wisconsin who, the story goes, she was in her courtroom holding a hearing. ICE came in. They did not have a judicial warrant to arrest the man in her courtroom. They had an administrative warrant. So she directs ICE out of the courtroom to go talk to, her chief judge. Meanwhile, the man in her courtroom exits out another door in her courtroom. She is, by reports, upset. She's incensed that ICE is interfering in her court hearing. I mean, rightly so. This is just, if you just think about this, right? Like, why is ICE going into a courtroom? This is a man who either was, who was in some type of hearing. Like, let's say it was a family court hearing, custody hearing. ICE could have waited outside the courtroom. They could have gone to his place of work. They could have gone to his house. They have all that info on these people. They don't need to go to the courthouse. There we go. Okay, we're back on. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so if I could get confirmation from my team. Okay, good. Yes, thank you. So here I am. Okay, so we were talking about Judge Duggan, the judge in Milwaukee who was arrested. Okay, so she was mad that ICE was going into her courtroom, and I think rightly so, because what I was saying is that ICE has a whole file on people when they go to arrest them. They know everything about these people. They know where they live, they know where they work, they know where they go to church, they know where their kids go to school. They don't need to go into a courthouse because the courthouse should be respected, right? ICE should not go into a courthouse unless they have no other option. The reason for that is that that's where people go to get justice. That's where domestic violence victims go to get protective orders. This is not a place where ICE should be discouraging people from accessing justice. This is the house of justice. So, and this judge in her robe is holding a court hearing that's being interrupted by ICE. It's just disrespectful. And so she was mad, and they didn't like that she was mad. And so they arrested her. They went and arrested her and handcuffed her in her black robe and led her out into the car. And there's been a lot of, oh man, one of my videos on this made it to the wrong side of Instagram. And there's been a lot of people who are like, yeah, well, you know, FAFO, basically. She broke the law, and so that's what you get. Here's what I think is a distinction about this is this was obviously meant, this arrest was meant to send a message to judges. And you tack on the executive order from the Trump administration just last night. What's today, the 29th? So this would have been the 28th, where the executive order is like directly going after city officials, sanctuary cities, any, you know, local governmental entity or individual who is basically supporting immigrants. They're now going to become the targets. And when Judge Duggan got arrested, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, went on a literal press tour, like on ABC News, et cetera, telling everybody about how this judge got arrested. So yeah, judges can get arrested, of course. You guys can't get sound. Can you hear me on? Oh, okay, let me see. More technical difficulties. Sorry, guys. How's that for sound? Tell me how sound goes. Testing, testing. Can you hear me? I'll wait for my team to confirm in the chat. Let me know if you can hear me, guys. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm going to just assume you can hear me and keep talking. So thank you on TikTok. I thank you, Rhoda. I appreciate it. Okay, so that's essentially what's happening with Judge Duggan. They're sending a message. Pam Bondi's going on the press tour. The whole point is to tell the whole judiciary, meaning all the judges, all the lawyers, that if we are, you know, obstructing justice or getting in the way of ICE apprehensions, that we're next. And I think, you know, what's important to know as advocates, you know, if you're watching this, you might be a lawyer, you might be a loved one of an immigrant. If an ICE action is occurring in your midst, right, you shouldn't interfere. You shouldn't hide the person in your closet and tell ICE that no one's there, okay? Because that could be considered harboring. That could be a criminal act, okay? That's not smart. That's not smart. That's putting yourself in the crosshairs. What we can do is take notes and be good witnesses of ICE enforcement actions. You can record law enforcement doing their job at any time and any place in the United States. That's legal. So you can get out your phone and you can take a recording, and you can make sure you know that how many agents are there, what outfits are they wearing, are they ICE, are they plainclothes, are they masked, is it 5 of them, you know, are they driving a car, what does the license plate say? Take down notes. What words did they use? You know, take as much note-taking as you can, but don't interfere. Don't lie to them. Don't get in their way. You know, don't help a person evade arrest, because then you're placing yourself at risk as well. And obviously that makes you less effective as an advocate. And I always say, you know, there's going to be a lot of times when we're going to see racial profiling, discrimination, illegal arrests without probable cause. Those are all things that are going to go down. But the moment that this is my opinion. It may not be a legal opinion, kind of is. At the moment it's going down, that is not the moment to battle, right? You don't get into a battle with a racist police officer who's decided they're going to make an arrest of somebody. You're not going to change their mind in that moment. You're only going to upset them and anger them, and they're going to double down. What you need to do is mark the event, note the event, record it if you can, and then talk to a lawyer and, bring your complaints later. That's the best way to respond. So I think maybe based on what happened with Judge Duggan, she didn't respond in the best way, as disrespectful as it was for them to be in her courtroom in that way. Should they have arrested her and gone on a press tour about it? Absolutely not. But I think that she probably has some regrets when she reviews the incident, would be my assessment of the situation. If I could get my production team to just confirm in the chat that you guys can hear me on the webcam on the Instagram stream, that would be great. Okay, here's my good news item, because we've got 5 items, 4 of them are bad, but here's the little good nugget sprinkled in the middle, is related to the student visas. The Trump administration had just up and revoked, canceled out the SEVIS registration for almost 4,000 students, a couple of, starting on the 4th, really, of April. Most of these had no rhyme or reason to them. Some of them had some criminal incidents, some very minor traffic ticket incidents. Some had no criminal history, no pro-Palestine protests, no explanation, and their SEVIS registration was just canceled, revoked without even notice going to them. There were a lot of lawsuits filed about that throughout the country. Several judges issued blocks on these cancellations. And then the Trump administration has reversed course right before they were going to have to go into court and basically explain themselves on one of these hearings. They reversed course and reinstated the vast majority of all of these visas. So that's good news, and sometimes lawsuits work. Okay, great. Thank you, Jennifer, for the info. Another bad news update is about the Florida Operation Tidal Wave, they're calling it. Tidal Wave, they arrested over 800 immigrants. So another, we're just seeing a lot of heightened enforcement actions going on around the country. And so we saw it in New York last week, where 200 people, all of whom they claim are murderers, were arrested. And I just the sort of outlandish accusations of violent criminal aliens just all banding together and living together. Just this is, I'm a skeptic. Just doesn't sort of pass the sniff test to me. And we'll see what they say, of course, about all of these 800 migrants who were arrested in Florida. And then finally, this is an action item too for you guys. There's House Bill 1403 in the Texas legislature. We're ending the end of session in the Texas legislature. So this is the moment when bills die, okay, because they have 1 week to get through committee and passed out of the legislature. And if they don't get out of committee, they're donezo for this session. So there's a sort of last minute flurry of a push to try and get things out. Most of them are bad. So House Bill 1403 they call it the Texas Dream Act. This is the law in Texas that allows undocumented students who reside in Texas to pay in-state tuition. And if you can imagine how many thousands of lives this has changed, including everybody in the state, that these promising young people who grew up in this country, who grew up in this state, are smart enough and ambitious enough to get themselves admitted to Texas state universities, right? That's a feat. That is a feat. And the difference between in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition is a deal breaker for most people. And so revoking their ability to pay in-state tuition, it's just cruel. It's stupid. It hurts everybody. Really, think about it. It hurts everybody because smart people going to college in this country is a good thing. So House Bill 1403 is bad. It's in committee today. I urge everybody to please pick up your phone, call your state reps, tell them you oppose this bill and you want it to die and not get out of committee. So there's your action tip for the week. Okay, Jen, I'm ready for questions, and I see you guys here on TikTok watching. If you have any questions related to immigration news or your immigration cases, I'm here for it. I'm available to answer questions. If we get too into private things, I'll direct you to just schedule a consultation with my firm so that we can talk privately about things that are going on. But if you have just general questions, we can talk about them here. So here's a question via Instagram. Are there any updates on TPS in Honduras? Do we think that there will be lawsuits like last time? Let me just look this up because I haven't heard news on TPS for Honduras. So let me see. Hold on one second. I want to give you real-time information. Okay, yeah, it looks like they're going to cancel TPS. They're going to tell us on May 4th what they're going to do with the extension, and my guess is that they would probably cancel it, and then there will be a lawsuit, and then we'll see what happens with it. So TPS, thank you for bringing this to my attention. TPS for Hondurans is on the chopping block. Hondurans who have TPS have been here for decades. You have to have been here since before 1998. That it was announced, I think it was Hurricane Mitch that got TPS for Hondurans. So it's been a really long time. So my recommendation to Honduran nationals who are still on TPS is to talk to a lawyer. And I mean, I'm sure most of them have, but please don't talk to a notario, don't talk to your friend, don't talk to your, people at church. Go directly to an immigration lawyer so that we can talk about what other options you might have. You might be eligible for a trafficking visa or crime victims visa or a family petition, maybe even a work visa, depending on your history. So it's really important as soon as possible when you know it might be canceled to start consulting, because as we know, this administration is not acting slowly, right? When it comes to immigrants, they're acting very swiftly. It is their priority, which means they could revoke TPS, pick people up, deport them. And we're talking with Hondurans, people who have been here for decades. Like, there's a lot to wrap up. There's a lot of affairs to wrap up. You might own homes. You probably have children. You might have businesses. Think about what's going to happen with all of that in case somebody gets detained. Please, before it happens, because once it happens, it's so much harder to respond. Jennifer, is it true that some people are being denied visas because of social media activity? Yes. Every immigrant should just assume that your social media is being scoured when you're applying for a visa. When you're applying at the U.S. Embassy or consulate abroad, they're going to check your social media handles. It's part of the application. You have to give them your handles of your social media. When you are coming in, they might check it. They might grab your phone and check it. You have the right, if you are a green card holder or a U.S. citizen, to decline it. I mean, technically you have that right too if you're a non-immigrant, like a temporary immigrant, but then they'll just deny you entry. So, and then they're now starting to ask for social media handles on immigration applications as well. So just in all phases and levels of immigration, you should assume that your social media is being checked by immigration. Next question, does the registration affect people who came in with parole or CBP-1 appointments? Great question. No. So registration, the alien registration requirement started on April 11th, so just about a couple of weeks ago. And it requires all undocumented immigrants who are not already registered to get registered within the system. Otherwise, they will face fines and potential criminal penalties. So the people who don't have to register are people who are already in the system. Not everybody who's already in the system, but people who entered on visas, okay, entered with inspection and admission, you're in removal proceedings, or you have a green card, okay? Those are the people who are already registered. If you entered without permission and you weren't apprehended, you likely have a requirement to register unless you've filed for a green card. The registration, the question about whether or not to register is a very complex and difficult one, and it's something that people have to decide personally. As a lawyer, I can give you advice on information about what consequences might attach. If you don't register, you could face fines and criminal penalties, right? It's a serious penalty for not registering, and they have already arrested one person for the failure to register. We'll see what happens in that case, right? We should watch that case closely and see what happens. On the other hand, ICE has said we're going to use the registration as an enforcement tool. We're going to use this to help us pick people up. So you're also, putting yourself on the list if you register. So it's not an easy choice, and it's not something that I'm not giving advice one way or the other, certainly not on the internet about this. I think people really have to weigh the pros and cons and make a personal choice about registration. Next question, how can I check if there's a deportation order against me without knowing it? So the way someone would get a deportation order without realizing it is if they were in deportation proceedings and they didn't appear at a hearing, and then they got a deportation order in absentia, it's called. And that happens pretty daily, right? Daily people have hearings and they don't show up. What the best way to check is if you have your A number, you can go to the EOIR system and you can just look up EOIR system and check what the status of your case is, and it'll tell you if the judge ordered removal. Now, if you had a hearing and you didn't know about it and you weren't notified and your address was up to date, you might have cause to reopen the case, and you should talk to a lawyer, someone like me, who can check your case and see if there's a way to reopen it. I will say that once you file a motion to reopen, it has an automatic stay of deportation. So while that motion is pending, you will be protected against deportation. But you won't have just been ordered deported unless you were already in deportation proceedings. So you have to have been in deportation proceedings to receive the order of deportation. If you don't know your A number, we can do what's called a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request, to get a copy of your court file, and then we'd have your A number. What if I get a deportation notice, but I don't understand why? Then you should talk to a lawyer. They are sending out these just blast notices to people who have emails on file, and like U.S. citizens are getting these. Some of the accredited representatives who are representing people because they put their own email address in the forms for their clients. Lots of people are getting these deportation notices and they're not actually deportable. So what I would say is if you get a notice, immediately, like that same moment, contact a lawyer, let us review the notice, let us give you a consultation, and we'll decide whether this really applies to you and how we're going to fight it. Okay, but it's hard on us as lawyers when somebody's had a notice for a while and they call us and they say like, oh, my appeal is due tomorrow or my hearing is next week. We can't take those cases. We don't have capacity to respond in those moments. And it's really hard to turn people away who are in an emergency because we don't have time. So, and we're getting more and more of that now than ever. We had to turn away 160 cases in March because they were, last minute detained cases that we didn't have capacity for. So just do what you can to get ahead and be proactive and make your plan. Call a lawyer before you have an emergency. Like, honestly, if you get a deportation notice, you should have already consulted with a lawyer before you even got the notice because you knew you were an immigrant. Every immigrant who is undocumented needs to have a lawyer right now so that you have someone to call if you get picked up and that person already knows you and can already help you. Can a small mistake in my info, like a name or birthday, affect my immigration case? A name, definitely. Well, both of them can. Name mistakes can be really challenging because what will happen is you'll get, the work permit will be misspelled or it'll be in the wrong name. And then you have to file a correction to that. And then you can't get the driver's license because the work permit doesn't match the passport. And so like your whole documentation process is on hold waiting for USCIS to fix an error. So yes, name misspellings can be very impactful, and I would advise to just really check that stuff closely before you submit. It's not that it can't be fixed. It can be fixed, but it's hard and it takes a long time. It's very frustrating. Yeah. Dealing with misspellings in documents is no joke. It's annoying. Can I get free or low-cost legal help if I'm facing deportation and can't afford a lawyer? Yes, there is some free and low-cost legal help available out there. There's lots of really great organizations around the country that offer pro bono or low bono legal services. If you DM us, you can let us know where you are. Maybe we can help make a referral, or you can call the court. The immigration court in your area should have a pro bono list that they share. I will say that all of the organizations around the country that provide support to immigrants are losing their funding and facing major funding crises. In Central Texas, where I'm from, the big orgs are slashing hundreds of people from their teams. It's really devastating what's happening, because these are the organizations that go into the detention centers and they provide legal orientation to people who are detained, and they represent the unaccompanied kids. I mean, these are the heroes of our field, and they're losing their funding. And so what that means for immigrants who are seeking free help is that it's harder to get. One of the resources that's available out there that maybe a lot of people don't know about is called PALE. I'm a PALE lawyer for the Mexican consulate in Central Texas, which means they vet and hire a few lawyers in different areas. There's I think maybe 3 or 4 of us immigration lawyers, and the consulate will pay for the legal services for its nationals for certain cases. So you can also go, if you're Mexican, you can go to the consulate and talk to the protection department about your case, and they might be able to help you as well. So we're at time. Thank you for being here with me in this lovely courtyard in Saltillo, Coahuila, Mexico. I'm having such a great time here. I just love this beautiful place. And I want to give you your action item. Remember, every week I'm going to give you guys something that you can do if you're feeling upset about the state of things and you don't know how to help. There are a lot of rallies coming up this week on May 1st. I will be attending and speaking at 2 rallies on May 1st, and they're all over the country. And so what I recommend you guys do is your action tip this week. Number one, actually, I'm going to give you 2. Number 1, if you're in Texas, call your state reps and tell them, please block HB 1403. We do not like it. This is the law that takes away in-state tuition for undocumented university students. Next action item is look up when the rallies are in your city and go and bring a friend. Invite a friend, like somebody who doesn't usually get political or attend rallies. Pull them into the mix, take them to a rally, and that's your action tip of the week. I appreciate you all being here with me, and I will see you on Thursday in Spanish to talk about all of this again. Bye. Have a great rest of the week.